It's a Pro Football Focus Wednesday. Who performed well according to the Pro Football Focus grading scale? And then whenever UT Martin, Josh Ward, and a whole lot more. This is your Wednesday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good Wednesday morning, everybody, and welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols, your go-to Tennessee Volunteers podcast each and every day, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. That is your team every day. I'm your host, Eric Kane. So glad that you guys have elected to spend some time with me here on Locked On Vols this Wednesday morning. As always, you can find me at _Kaner on Twitter, and please follow that at Locked On Vols account on Twitter. Let's get it over 2,000. We're very, very close in that regard. Of course, YouTube, subscribe, pound that like button, and anywhere you find your audio podcast. I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, so we got a fun show coming up. We're going to go over the Pro Football Focus grades in segment 1, get to a couple more of your Twitter Tuesday questions. Yes, I know it's Wednesday, but there was an overflow, and I want to make sure that everybody has their voice heard. I answer some of that in segment 2, and then Josh Ward. We're going to close out a Wednesday show here from our good buddy, Josh Ward. That is the map, the roadmap here for a Wednesday Locked On Vols. So for the Pro Football Focus grades, listen, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you guys. It is an FCS opponent. All right. It is, it just kind of is what it is, right? I know I say that all the time. That's kind of my saying, my go-to saying, but I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on Pro Football Focus. Usually I spend a segment on the offense and then I spend a segment on the defense. But I mean, Tennessee offensively had 41 players who played in this football game. Tennessee defensively had 35 players that played in this football game. I'm not making notes on everybody because you empty the bench, and that's good because it is that's what's supposed to happen in a football game like this. But nonetheless, the Pro Football Focus grading scale a little bit different. Elite is a 90 to 99 grade. Very good is 80 to 89. Above average starters 70 to 79. Average starters in the 60s. Hello, where was that in grade school? 60 to 69. Below average starters 50 to 59, and anything less than 50 is considered a backup level player. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll have the grading scale rolling on the bottom line here at the bottom of the screen so you guys can check it out there. All right, so let's look at the offensive grades. Leading the way was Jalin Hyatt, had an 87.5% grade. Hendon Hooker's right there at number 2, 85.2. Those are the two offensive players that scored in the 80s. Hyatt played 33 snaps. Hooker played 48 snaps. Joe Milton had a grade of 79.5. He played 26 snaps. Squirrel White, 79.1, played 37 snaps. And some other ones that played a significant number of snaps. Ramel Keaton had a grade of 70.7. He had 50 snaps. Jabari Small, 26 snaps, 63.9. So, again, I'm not going to go through all these just because it's just a matter of I don't have time. But let's look at the passing chart. For Hendon Hooker, Joe Milton, Taven Jackson, and Gaston Moore. This is what the passing chart looks like for Tennessee's quarterbacks. 20 yards down the field between the hashes, 3 of 3, 104 yards and a touchdown. 0 for 1, 20 yards to the right side of the football field. Between 10 and 20 yards intermediate throwing, Tennessee was 3 for 6 in between the hashes for 44 yards and a touchdown. And then from the line of scrimmage up to 10 yards, Tennessee was 4 of 5 to the left side, 21 yards. Tennessee was 3 of 4 between the hashes, 18 yards, and Tennessee was 2 of 2 on the right side for 14 yards. I continue to say Tennessee because, again, Tennessee played 4 quarterbacks in this win. Behind the line of scrimmage, Tennessee was 2 of 2 in the middle of the field, 31 yards and a touchdown. 1 of 1, 44 yards to the right side as well. So that's what we're looking at there. Tennessee quarterbacks were kept clean on 88.9% dropbacks, under pressure on just 11.1% dropback. They were not blitzed 74.1% of the time and blitzed 25.9% of the time. Let's look at pass blocking grades, shall we? Again, a number of offensive linemen played, number of running backs. Ollie Lane led the way with an 83.8% pass blocking grade on 12 pass blocking reps. Dane Davis, 15 pass blocking reps, 82.5. Jeremiah Crawford, 26 pass blocking reps, 82.3. It's 2 backups and your worst pass blocker if you're starting offensive lineman right there leading the way. That's good to see. Jackson Lampley, backup guard, 11 pass blocking reps, 80.1. Javonte Spraggins, 30 pass blocking reps, 76.2. Cooper Mays, 30, 75.9. Ryan Grant had 6 reps, true freshman, 75.8% in the pass blocking grade. You go all the way down here and you don't even get into the average starters until player number 16 on offense. So obviously FCS opponent, Tennessee did really, really well in terms of pass blocking. I'll get the remaining starters if I haven't mentioned them already. Jabari Small, running back, 71.7 and 14 pass blocking reps. Princeton Fant, 23 pass blocking reps, 68.1% was his grade. Darnell Wright, 30 pass blocking reps, 67.3. And Jerome Carvin, 29 pass blocking reps, 56% was his grade. Let's look at run blocking, shall we? For the offensive line and everybody involved. 39 players register right here. You've got 2 players at the top, and Brew McCoy and Jalen Wright. Brew McCoy, obviously a wide receiver. Jalen Wright, a running back. So there's a couple of times whenever the off back would be blocking for, the quarterback or whoever. Brew McCoy, 75% grade. Jalen Wright, 73% grade. Jackson Lampley, 13 reps as a backup guard. 69.3% was his grade. Jerome Carvin, a good day run blocking. 19 reps, 62.9. Let's look here. You've got Javonte Spraggins, 20 reps, 59.8%. Again, it wasn't the best day running wise for Tennessee. Still ran for over 200 yards, but not like against Alabama and against LSU. The physicality I thought lacked a little bit in the run game. Darnell Wright, 20 reps run blocking, 59.3. You had Cooper Mays, 20 reps, 54.9. Princeton Fant, 14 reps, 54.3. Jeremiah Crawford, 18 reps, 49.6. And Jalin Hyatt out wide, 12 reps, 45.2. So let's look at the offense a little bit. Let's check out defense, shall we, quickly. A lot of good grades over here. Played a whole lot of guys. Brandon Turnage led the way. Only 11 reps, though, before he left in the first quarter. 82.9% was his grade. Wesley Walker playing a little nickelback, playing strong safety. 78.8% was his grade, which is good to see. Aaron Beasley, who got the start. Of course, Juwan Mitchell didn't play in this football game. 26 snaps, 78.1% was his grade. Roman Harrison, 25 snaps, 76.8% was his grade. Danico Slaughter getting the start, 43 snaps, played a whole lot of football, even with the backups. 74.8% was his grade. Let's look at coverage, shall we? Because that's really what I care about here in terms of the secondary. Coverage. Wesley Walker was targeted 5 times, gave up 2 receptions for 22 yards. You've got Danico Slaughter targeted 1 time, no receptions given up. Aaron Beasley targeted twice, gave up 1 reception for let's see here, no yards. Jeremy Banks was targeted twice, gave up 2 receptions for 7 yards. Tamari McDonald targeted 3 times, gave up 3 receptions for 18 yards. Deshaun Rucker targeted 4 times, gave up 3 receptions for 62 yards in this football game. Let's see here. William Wright, the walk-on cornerback, targeted 7 times, gave up 5 receptions for 36 yards and a touchdown. Trayvon Flowers, 1 target, 1 reception given up, 5 yards. Christian Harrison, 4 targets, 2 receptions given up for 49 yards. And that's pretty much the bulk of it. The guys who gave up touchdowns, D. Williams targeted twice, gave up 2 receptions, 56 yards and a touchdown. And it was William Wright who gave it the touchdown. So that's what it looked like in terms of coverage for Tennessee on defense. So usually I spend a whole lot more time on Pro Football Focus grades, but I don't want to waste your time, and I certainly don't want to waste mine. It's an FCS opponent. Tennessee won 65-24. Tennessee emptied the bench, and there were just a ton of different guys who played in football games. I'll go over the snap counts real quick who got the most. Andre Turntime played the most snaps defensively, 56. Deshaun Rucker played 50 snaps. William Wright played 47 snaps. Danico Slaughter played 43 snaps. Elijah Herring at linebacker played 37 snaps. Jordan Thomas at safety played 35 snaps. Amari McNeil on the defensive line. And Wesley Walker also played 35 snaps. And then a look at the offense snap count, just the leaders in that regard. You had Javonte Spraggins, who played 50, Cooper Mays, the entire starting offensive line, except for the left side with Carvin and Crawford, because again, those guys were subbed in and out for Ollie Lane and Dane Davis a couple of series. Those guys all played 50 snaps. You've got Hendon Hooker played 48 snaps. Jeremiah Crawford played 44 snaps. Brew McCoy played 44 snaps. Squirrel White and Princeton Fant played 37 snaps. Parker Ball, Dane Davis, 33 and 30 snaps respectively, and then so on and so forth. So that's a look at the Pro Football Focus grades right here on Locked On Vols. We do it every single Wednesday, looking back at the week before. It's not everything. It's certainly not everything, but it is something. It's another way you can look at the game through the lens of what Pro Football Focus looks at as well. All right, so that's what we're going to do here for the Pro Football Focus this week. We'll get back more into in-depth looks as the season, obviously, in Kentucky will have a much greater in-depth look at what the Pro Football Focus says about that game when we get there next week. But coming up next, I'm going to answer a couple more of your questions from Twitter Tuesday because I didn't get to all of them. So hang tight, and we'll get some more of those questions here next. But first, I want to tell you about LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs, they'll be finding the right people for your team faster and for free. We've all been looking for jobs, right? We've all been on LinkedIn Jobs. I know I've made a LinkedIn profile a couple different times throughout my career, and honestly, I need to get back on there and update my profile right now. But what if you're in a new spot in life to where you have a small business, it's your baby, and you want to make sure your baby is taken care of and look after every single minute of every single day? Find the right people that you want to interview. And again, it's completely free. It's at LinkedIn Jobs. Add your job with the purple hashtag hiring frame to LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easier to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you like to interview and then ultimately hire. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster and for free. You can post your job. It's at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Welcome back into your Wednesday edition of Locked On Vols. Glad that you guys elected to hang out here with us here every single weekday, 30 minutes, maybe a couple of minutes later than that. But it's the best Tennessee content you're going to find every single weekday on your drive to work, during your workouts, whatever the case may be. You can find it every single day wherever you find your podcast. It's including YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, pound that like button. Let's get it to 500 likes if you please. And of course, subscribe to the show as well. All right, let's go back and answer some more of the questions I didn't get to yesterday. This is from Tyler. With Kentucky's offensive line being a joke, we can expect to see Levis on the run a lot. What adjustments or coaching needs to happen to corral him better than Bryce Young when he scrambled? Bryce Young didn't run for a lot of yards. Bryce Young scrambled behind the line of scrimmage, kept the play alive, and then hit his receivers down the field. So that's very frustrating. Of course, that can't happen. But in terms of giving up yards on the ground to a quarterback, Bryce Young, that wasn't Bryce Young this year. Now, last year it was Bryce Young a little bit. It was Matt Corral. It was Kenny Pickett. It was a couple different guys, obviously Emory Jones. But so far, knocking on wood, that hadn't been a huge concern for Tennessee this year. But you just have to be up on it. You got to put a spy on him at points in times, knowing that he's not looking to run, but he can, and he has a skill set to where he can. Obviously, had some turnovers against Ole Miss. Actually got hurt there late in that game against Ole Miss by running the football. So you just got to be prepared for it. He's a bigger guy, right? He's about 230 pounds or so. So you can't just expect to arm tackle him. You got to take him to the ground. And I think Tennessee, if that becomes an issue, they might put a spy cover one pirate underneath or something like that just to stake that out. But I think as long as you continue to bring pressure, affect the passer, make him timid in the pocket, that's kind of Tennessee's best avenue for success, in my opinion, because that's what we've seen so far this year. Let's go to Steven. How do you see this offense performing next year with Milton compared to this year? Offensively, will there be a drop? There will be a drop, but how much of one do you anticipate? Let's be completely frank here. None of us thought Hendon Hooker would be having this type of season. Knew Hendon Hooker would be good, knew he'd be solid, knew he'd be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. But I mean, again, I talked about it over the offseason, like stat-wise, and he's not there yet, but he's on pace, certainly, through 7 games. Stat-wise, I didn't think he was going to improve on 31-3, 36 total touchdowns, 3 interceptions. That's hard to do, but man, has he improved? And man, does he look more in control of this offense? And is he right in the middle of that Heisman race right now? Absolutely. So I don't care who's your quarterback next year, unless it's, Brett Favre or somebody, right? Even he throws a tons of picks. You're going to take a drop, right? You're going to take a drop. So, we'll see. Milton, we haven't seen, he looks good, but it's been mop up duty. Only time we've seen him this year, excluding one pass against Alabama, it's been all mop up duty. So I don't know how much has he learned in terms of being patient in the pockets. How much has he controlled his down the field throwing? It looks good against scrubs. It does. It's looked good against scrubs, but I don't know just yet. So, we will, we'll have to see exactly what that drop looks like. But it's nice to have an experienced guy. And by all accounts, it looks like Joe Milton, he's got a year of eligibility. He's happy. I think he's waiting his time. And he should be the starting quarterback next year. Taven Jackson will be here. Nico Iamaleava will be here as well. But we'll have to see exactly how much Nico is pushed and how much you can kind of, if he's going to take that job in if and when as a freshman, or if it's going to be Joe Milton show the entire way. We will have to see. Let's move over. I didn't even make it over to the Locked On Balls account yesterday, and apologies there. Let's go to Sawyer. Do you think Walter Nolan is still liking his decision to go to A&M after the horrid start and Tennessee's early season success? And does Jimbo make it through the season? I'd still be shocked if Jimbo was fired mid-season. So I'll say yes, he'll make it through the season. And then Walter Nolan, there's obviously a lot of factors that go into recruiting nowadays. I'm sure he wants to win. I'm sure he wants to be a part of a winning program, be making some plays. So I'm sure he's got eyes and ears on what's going here in Knoxville. Of course, he went to high school at Powell last fall. So, we'll see. A beautiful thing. I'm not saying this is a possibility, but, if you miss out on some targets there, some big time targets, the transfer portal, they could always find their way back to your team in a year or two. That's just kind of the nature of the beast that we're living in right now. All right. This is from C. Norm. If Tillman comes back for the Kentucky game, do you think Hyatt's playing the way he is gets less snaps? No, because they play two different positions. Hyatt's the slot. Tillman would be taking snaps away from Ramel Keaton. I still think that they're going to have four guys, especially if they're going to ease Tillman back into it. I think he'll play this week. We'll have to see if indeed that is the case, but it would be Keaton that would be taking some snaps away right there. But I think you got to ease Tillman back in no matter what. You can't just rush it through, and you want to get the best out of Tillman, but obviously he's going to have to get back in shape as well because he's missed a month of action. Let's see here. What's up with Hooker floating some of these deep balls? Was that done on purpose or were they missed throws? I just think sometimes, and I said it the other day, and of course I'm not a quarterback, but I think sometimes when you are so wide open, you almost double clutch. And I think that's what happened with him and Joe on that long pass to Squirrel. I think sometimes you're hesitant when you are so wide open, the receiver downfield. But some of those down the field throws didn't look great, but they were so wide open. That's not a very good answer, but that's my answer because I don't play quarterback. Let's go to Andrew. I have some sources that told me about the Smoky Grays a few days before it was ever announced. On that note, the same source told me about the orange helmets that are just waiting to make their debut. What are your thoughts, and what do you think we would wear and win against them? I was thinking Kentucky, but wasn't sure, but heard about the orange out this weekend against Bama. Enjoy the show. Thanks. Appreciate it, Andrew. We'll see. We've seen those pictures floating around social media. It's like one of the worst kept secrets, right? We've seen the pictures floating around social media. So, we'll see. I think dark mode is likely to happen this weekend. So it wouldn't be there. So I don't know. I don't really have an answer to it. Potentially a road game. They could maybe potentially make their debut. So we will see. Let's go to Jeremy. This might be a dumb question, but I've often wondered what coaches watch when they are scouting an opponent. I feel like the telecast would be, this is from last week. Sorry, Jeremy. This is from last week. Yeah, they watched their film, and obviously they watched the tight and the wide versions as well. So, all right, guys, your questions have been answered. Might have taken a day late, and I do apologize. But as always, thank you so much for sending me in those questions. Every single Tuesday on the show, it's Locked On Vols Twitter Tuesday, your mailbag. It's when you guys, your voices are heard, and it's when you can take over the show. Hey, coming up next, we got Ward Wednesday, Josh Ward. He joins the show next, right here on Locked On Vols. But I want to tell you about Chris, all right? He suffered from excessive underarm sweat for 10 years. He was so worried about sweating through his dress shirts that he started tucking maxi pads into his shirt to soak up all that sweat until he found Sweatblock. Sweatblock changed the game for him, and it can change the game for you as well. Chris, he was able to fix his problem with Sweatblock. Sweatblock was created by a doctor to help his own excessive sweating. It is doctor created and doctor recommended. If you or someone you love are experiencing embarrassing sweat or odor, please give Sweatblock a try today. Save 20% with the promo code Locked On at sweatblock.com. It is also available on Amazon. Sweatblock wipes were featured and tested on the Rachel Ray Show by firefighters. So try the Sweatblock wipes as well. There's tons of content. There's tons of things in there whenever you go check out Sweatblock that can help you with your sweating and your hygiene. So one more time, save 20% with the promo code Locked On. That's at sweatblock.com. Also available on Amazon. That time of the week, we got Josh Ward, the Wednesday ahead of Kentucky. Tennessee is 7-0 and obviously looking to go to 8-0. So plenty to discuss here. With our guy, Josh Ward. He is at Josh_Ward on Twitter. Give him a follow. Josh, welcome back to the show. Fun times in Knoxville right now.
Very fun times. It's a big week, but this is a game where Tennessee's a big favorite. And, I think it has a chance to be a good game, but there's also a chance that if Tennessee keeps this offense rolling, that, Kentucky's just not capable of keeping up. And I think that's why fans are so excited. Even a UT Martin game becomes entertaining because of what the offense was able to do in the first half, putting up 50+ against a team that you're supposed to take care of business against.
Now, am I wrong to say this? I've been kind of saying this all year. Kentucky is good enough. It can beat you. Kentucky's a solid football team, but Kentucky, at least offensively, is not what it was a season ago. I think it's getting back to that slowly, but they lost some firepower. They lost 3 starters on the offensive line. That offensive line's been horrendous in pass protection. Obviously, Chris Rodriguez getting back in that lineup. He's been playing well, don't get me wrong, but the running game overall on the year has not been good. Will Levis has been hot and cold. He missed a game. Am I wrong to say that this Kentucky team offensively is not as good as it was a season ago, but still a good enough team to beat you if you come in and make mistakes?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The one pause would be, going into last year's game, we didn't expect Will Levis was capable of trying to keep up with Tennessee in a shootout, and they had the ball at the end of the fourth quarter with the chance to go down the field and score to win the game because of how they changed things up. And Mark Stoops is right to do that last year. They just came up short. But the offensive line is the big question to me. They don't have that offensive line to, I think, make it as realistic that they're able to do that. Tennessee's secondary is a question, and I am sure that Kentucky will try to make plays with its receivers, with Will Levis, who is a projected first-round pick in the NFL draft. Say, okay, we're going to go challenge your secondary and see if you can get stops. But Tennessee defensively up front has been able to apply pressure at times, and I think that's the advantage Tennessee can find from the defensive side versus Kentucky is attacking that offensive line. And if that's the case, it's going to make things difficult for Will Levis, and he is prone to mistakes, to turning the ball over. And Alontae Taylor pick 6 last year in the end was kind of the difference in the game, right? Something like that could happen again this Saturday. Chris Rodriguez looked really good a couple of weeks ago. He is a fresh back who's not had to play that much, and he had 2 weeks to get ready for this Tennessee game. So my guess is Kentucky does try to slow things up a little bit, limit possessions, and force Tennessee to be not perfect, but make sure Tennessee can keep things rolling. Because if the Vols make any mistakes, Kentucky's probably thinking, okay, that's how we get them.
That was the game plan last year as well until Tennessee scored twice in, what was it, like 15 seconds or whatever. Then they just kind of threw that out the window. Defensively, DeAndre Square is a really good player. They got Jacquez Jones at linebacker, JJ Weaver on the edge. They've got some players on defense, top 15 defense, top 10 in scoring. What I think is so unique about this defense is 10 sacks on the season. Not one player has 2 sacks. 6 interceptions on the season. Not one player has 2 interceptions. Very balanced attack defensively, but still a typical Kentucky squad that's pretty solid on defense.
Yeah, balance is the word that I would have thrown out there, that they feel like they're good across the board. I know what Tennessee did against Alabama to change the perception. I don't know that Kentucky is Alabama because of the talent that I know is there. And we went into the LSU game and the Alabama game talking about, B.J. Ojulari and then Will Anderson and Dallas Turner. And it ended up not being a problem for Tennessee's defense. Kentucky's still going to try to bring pressure and force the issue because if you can't affect Hendon Hooker, I don't know how you affect Tennessee's offense in a negative way. So that has to be Kentucky's goal, but Tennessee's offensive line has just progressed to the point that I feel much better about it than I did at the beginning of the season. I think it's easily the most improved group from last year to this year, considering how difficult of a time the offensive line had in protecting the quarterback and staying healthy overall. Besides that left tackle position where they've dealt with a little bit of an issue, left guard to right tackle, where we talked about Tennessee feeling confident, has been as advertised and more. So unless something changes there, I believe Tennessee's offense is going to be able to do enough to protect Hendon Hooker. He'll take care of the football, and Tennessee will be able to put up too many points for Kentucky to keep up. If I'm wrong and Kentucky's able to force some pressure and we do see a couple of bad throws from Hendon, that to me is Kentucky's best chance to make it a game.
Josh, since you're much older than me, we might have different answers here. But where does Kentucky stack up in terms of rivalry games for Tennessee? This is Josh Heupel said this on Monday morning. Like, it depends on who you ask because you're going to get a different answer. My demographic, it's Florida. People older than me, it's Alabama, maybe even Vanderbilt. But Kentucky's in there for sure. This is a rivalry game, the Battle of the Beer Barrel, formerly. Where does Kentucky stack up maybe for you and your friends in terms of Tennessee rivalry games in football?
Yeah, because of the significant difference in our ages, Eric, as you point that out.
Yeah.
Yes. I would say it's probably still going to be about where you have it. I think it's an interesting week, and the beer barrel history does come up in conversation. And recently Kentucky has made it more competitive. You can say, well, that 20 team was no good and Jeremy Pruitt and all that still happened. And Kentucky came to Knoxville in the 2011 game, which was a total embarrassment. That's why what Josh Heupel is doing and what Tennessee is doing right now is giving Tennessee fans hope that, hey, you can get closer to where things were. But this Kentucky program is respectable. So I think it's made the week more interesting. It used to be for a good amount of time, that mid 80s to early 2010s run until that winning streak was snapped in 2011, that Kentucky was right there with Vanderbilt, where fans just chalked it up as an automatic win.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of fans are maybe doing that this week because of what Tennessee is doing, and I like Tennessee to win the game. But Kentucky's program has been more respectable. That's really the biggest difference. Tennessee's had the drop-off, but Kentucky's become a quality program. So Alabama, Florida, Georgia are easily ahead of Kentucky if you're having a rivalry conversation. But in the SEC, because you play Kentucky every year, I'd put Kentucky ahead of South Carolina in how you kind of view the game. And Vanderbilt just hasn't been nearly competitive enough for it to crack that conversation. So I'd put it fourth there. There are other SEC West teams that make that week more interesting, like going to Baton Rouge to play LSU, or next year when you play Texas A&M. That can be a more interesting week. You just don't get it often enough right now with the SEC scheduling. So Alabama, Florida, Georgia, then Kentucky for me.
Am I nuts to have Kentucky in front of Georgia?
Yes. Yep, you are.
and that and many other reasons, right?
Yeah. Add that to the list. Just because, if that's the case, it's an indictment on Tennessee because Tennessee hasn't been able to keep up with Georgia. But there have been too many great games against Georgia, and typically that's a battle that means so much in the Eastern Division and ultimately in the SEC, which Tennessee fans are hoping is the case next week. First things first, have to beat Kentucky, because if Kentucky wins this week, then you're more proven right in that statement. And next week, it still absolutely matters, but the confidence obviously is not going to be nearly as high going to Athens if you lose to Kentucky. So take care of business this week, which Tennessee has a good chance to do, and make that Tennessee-Georgia game next week mean what it has in the past.
Well, when you put it that way, I guess it makes some sense. Last thing, UT Martin, no huge major takeaways. If you have any, please let me know. But 65-24. Hendon Hooker put up a lot of stats playing a quarter and a half. He had a double pass. Princeton Fance looked like Superman out there, except for that drop touchdown. What are your big takeaways, if any, from Tennessee and UT Martin?
Yeah, Josh Heupel may be wearing the C patch on his shirt for Team Petty last week going into that UT Martin game. Yeah, that was maybe one of my takeaways coming off the field. But no, it was a game where I thought Tennessee would just roll up points. I had Tennessee scoring 63 points in the game, so it was close there. I didn't think UT Martin would score as many points as it did. It doesn't change any of my big picture thoughts on the defense. Tennessee needs to get some guys back in the secondary this week and keep them healthy, because if they continue to have issues there from a health depth standpoint in the secondary, then I do worry more next week than this week. But that's obviously one of your position group concerns right now. So let's see. But it wasn't a real game. It was a game where Tennessee was able to go out and have a glorified scrimmage and put up stats and points and entertain the fans, and they did that.
Josh Ward, noon to 3 weekdays on 99.1 The Sports Animal with VFL Jason Swain. Josh, what do you have coming up on the show this week?
Yeah, big week with this game mattering so much, and there is the build up to Georgia next week. But I'm kind of on the side of don't overlook this team, and the team I don't think is, but just in the general conversation. But fans are fired up; they're having a lot of fun. We're trying to have fun as well. 12 to 3 every day on Josh and Swain.
He's at Josh_Ward on Twitter. Josh, thanks so much, dude.
You got it. Thank you.
Every Wednesday, right here on Locked On Vols, it is Ward Wednesday. And really do appreciate him for hanging out with us and giving him some of his time each and every week. All right, that's going to do it here for this edition of Locked On Vols. A Wednesday show is in the books, as always. We took a look at some Pro Football Focus grades. Didn't spend a whole lot of time on the day because, well, again, it was UT Martin. We answered some more questions and spoke with Josh Ward. Got a crossover coming up later this week. We'll have a chat with Boogie Bentley, a chat with Jesse Simonson of On 3. So we have all that to look forward to coming up the rest of the week right here on Locked On Vols. Thanks so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen. Check out Locked On Sports Today. Biggest stories, biggest games, and the take of the day. Locked On Sports Today. Make that your second listen right behind Locked On Vols, your first listen each and every day. Guys, stay safe. We'll do it again tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody.